Hello. Thank you so much for your introduction. Welcome everyone to a new episode, not episode, webinar about Dinakarya. Dinakarya is Vedic for self-care items. And so the last time we talked about self-care items for the digestive fire, which is the first pillar of health, and the sleep patterns, which is the second pillar of health, and how to align your daily routine with the Ayurvedic body clock in order to make sure that these pillars of health are strong and functioning properly. And today, like Michal said, we're going to talk about the third pillar of health, which is sexual health or hormonal balance, which probably wraps them all up because they are all very related. I'm going to just start with a short recap in order to make sure that we all have our minds refreshed and are on the same page. Ayurveda has a special place for relationships. In fact, they even describe life as a relationship because it's the reason why we're here. And in the Sankhya philosophy, the root philosophy for both Ayurveda and yoga, the sister sciences, explains the beginning of our being as a get-together of Purusha, which is pure consciousness, divine consciousness, and has no vibration, and Prakruti, which is the mother of all creation, a very high vibration, and stands for feminine energy, and she has the willpower to multiply. So she comes together with Purusha in order to create the Big Bang. There was the Earth. And in the Earth's DNA, there is programmed the ability to do the same over and over again for everything that lives on the Earth and for the Earth itself. So in order to recreate this process and make beings, peoples, things around you, there's 5 elements needed. The first is space, which is connectedness. The second is air, which is movement. The third is fire or metabolism, the power to transform. The fourth is water, the ability to feel, to think, and to memorize. And the fifth is earth, or a stable entity, a being. And the doshic makeup, the 5 elemental makeup of this being, the stable being, is in a ratio. And this ratio is like a secondary color because a few elements mix and then they create a new frequency, a new wavelength with its own sound, its own color. And that is what we call the dosha. This dosha, you can even, or not maybe we, but Ayurvedic doctors can hear it in your pulse if they press here. And the sound of the pulse always relates to this doshic balance. And so it's like 65 up to 85% precise. If they listen to your pulse, they know your mind-body type, your dosha. And in order to keep this mind-body type alive, because now we have an entity, we have a being, but we need to keep it alive, we need to sustain it, we very much rely on one solid substance, which is called ojas. And ojas in the texts are explained symbolically as God's nectar. It's yellow golden, or like the honey of a bee, very condensed, and it holds our immunity. This ojas is one of the things that we very much rely on, but the ojas is in a triangle relationship with 2 other energies, because the ojas, besides being your immunity system, also is an energy. It's the energy of stability and the energy of matter, the energy that crystallizes matter into, crystallizes consciousness into matter, into being. Then over here you would have tejas, which is fire. Fire also is the metabolism, the energy of metabolism, and it has 40 locations in our body, different sides of the body, mainly to manage the building blocks of our body, which is the 7 tissues. The first tissue is plasma, and the last tissue is our shukra dhatu, which is sexual health, because the sex organs is in the 7th tissue, in the 7th layer. And each of these building blocks very much rely on the fire that was present in the previous building block. So there's a fire in a building block in the tissue that creates nourishment for the next one. And with, for example, there is the fat tissue that has the fire, the tejas, inside, and this produces the bone tissue. If the fat tissue's fire is disturbed for some reason, then that will show in the health of your bones. And this cycle of making the 7 building blocks takes 35 days, which is why these things are variable, they change. With Shukra Dhatu, the sex Dhatu being the last one, Shukra Dhatu depends on the fire in the nervous system, Majja Dhatu. So, and then the next one, the tissue that Shukra is supposed to nourish, is a little bit of a question because there is no next one because it's the 7th one. And therefore, it either goes to a new being when you're pregnant, I was going to say impregnated, when you're pregnant, or it goes, if that's not the case, again to the first tissue, and that's plasma. So by looking at the byproducts of the first tissue, which is plasma, and the byproducts are the top layer of the skin, the one that you can see, your mucus, the texture of the mucus, the quality of the mucus, the taste of the mucus, as well as vaginal discharge and the menstrual cycle. These are like mirrors for the plasma, and therefore mirrors to tell you how your sex organs and the tissue is doing. Then the third energy that we rely on in this triangle would be over here is prana, which is literally translated to oxygen, but on a more subtle level, it is the soul. And Ayurveda prefers to refer to the soul and oxygen in one, because it's not just oxygen. If it would be, then we wouldn't die. When the body decides to expire in the end of the life, the triangle energies, they leave your body, and still there's oxygen around the body, but the body no longer takes in the oxygen because the cellular intelligence that belongs to the tejas and is attached to both the soul and the immunity has left you. So you no longer know you should be breathing in, etc. And therefore, prana is not just oxygen, it's also the soul. And there is a really beautiful story in Vedic history that explains the relationship between these three energies and their communication with the endocrine system, the hormonal glands. To cut a long story short, because it goes into detail and you can look it up on Wikipedia. It's quite detailed on Wikipedia. But for now, I'll just tell you the short version of the story. At one point, there was the king of the Devas. Devas are divine beings. And there was a sage. Then they together got into a fight because the sage discovered that this Deva, the divine being, had some ego. And ego, in general, I would just say, doesn't have a very good reputation, which is quite interesting because for Ayurveda, ego is an essential phenomenon. It is programmed into our system in order to survive. So, but apparently spiritual souls are not supposed to have this ego. This spiritual divine beings are not supposed to have this ego, according to the sage. So the sage was really angry and therefore decided that this devas, divine beings, no longer had the right to survive forever. So he cursed them and took away their immortality. Therefore, they started to lose wars, and the earth was no longer in their hands. In the opposite hands even, they went to the demons. And so the earth no longer looked like a happy place. The Devas, for that reason, they just knew, I need to have this immunity and the immortality back. The Ojas, the god's nectar, I need it back. So they went to speak with one of the gods, which is Shiva, because they knew from their past knowledge that there is a way to get to this immortality, Ojas, which is by churning the ocean. But in order to churn the ocean, they needed a serpent. And the only serpent they knew with the power to churn the ocean and then transform whatever was in the ocean into immortality, Ojas, the god's nectar, was one specific snake, because this snake was very high in tejas, fire. And he was around the neck of Lord Shiva, who is the Lord of Dance. So they went to Lord Shiva to ask him for his blessing, and they did receive his blessing. He gave them the snake to churn the ocean. So they went on to churn, but in the process, the snake released so much fire that it released a very pungent poison, which scared them. So they went back to Lord Shiva to ask him for help, because they didn't know what to do anymore. Lord Shiva then swallowed the poison so that they were no longer, so the poison was no longer floating around. And by swallowing it, his throat turned blue, completely blue. And by having his throat turn blue, his thymus gland was activated, which is the destroyer of all disease. Not just his thymus gland, also his thyroid was activated, which is the gland that we know as the gland of communication. In the chakra system, it's the gland of communication by speaking, but also in the body, it's the gland of communication with many other organs like the heart, the brain, the skin. Yeah, many organs are related, are relying on the communication and the signals that the thyroid sends to them. So it was also activated, and now he had balance and he had even more immortality. It was double immortal. And if you look at the paintings that they made of him, the throat is still blue. And the soothing color for fire is also blue, but we'll get to that a bit later. What we can learn from this process of swallowing the poison and turning into immortality, especially because where it was activated were the hormonal glands, is that we sometimes may have to swallow poison in order to release something that's really good for us, which is amazing for us, even better than anything we can ever think of, which is in this case optimal health, the ojas, your immortality. And this poison, I wouldn't suggest you to drink actual poison, because the story relates to poison as the release of your emotions. Because sometimes emotions can be looked at as poisonous and therefore we prefer to suppress them. But the story in Ayurveda suggests that it's much better to actually release this poison in order to activate your glands and to have hormonal health, a balanced nervous system, and not immortality, but good immunity. Let me see what I had here to move on to the next one. Yeah, so in the Ayurvedic anatomy, it's suggested that the metabolism of emotions comes before the metabolism of the GI tract. Why? Because like the three energies, Ayurveda knows our anatomy as one with three bodies. Ojas relates to the physical body, prana to your consciousness, and tejas, the Shiva fire, relates to the mind. So the main fire is in the mind. Another thing with the throat, by the way, for the Shiva is that it also, the fire here activated his GI tract, because the thyroid is also in communication with the GI tract, and therewith with a very important fire there that hosts your complete metabolism. But even still, Ayurveda says that the metabolism of your thoughts and emotions are mastering the thyroid fire. So if the fire in the mental body, the mind body, the manokosha, that's what it's called, is disturbed, very likely all of the other fires will also be affected. For the mental body, fire takes the form of sensory impressions. The manomaya kosha, the name of the mental body, is constantly metabolizing the energies from our environment into our bodies and minds. Therefore, the mental body is sustained by sensory stimulation. Being a subtle, non-visible layer, the mental body receives and sends out information by using subtle channels, ones that you cannot see. In Ayurveda, these are called nadis. Very similar to the Chinese medicine system. Nadis, mouth out and marma points, which are on the skin. And they connect to your organs, and then they connect also to your subtle body, and so to the mind, to your emotions. Whenever we forget to live now and choose to divide our being over space and time, we disturb our mental fire, because the mental fire no longer knows where to go, because you're divided over space and time. And the same things happens when we neglect our feelings, because in that case, the mental fire does not know which feelings and emotions to digest. And depending on which energy caused you to divide yourself over space and time, one of the elemental energies, or caused you to neglect your feelings that you didn't want to identify with anything that you felt, whatever energy caused this will then afterwards build up toxins. And the toxins that you will build up, emotional, but also in the body, will very much relate to the energy that caused the disturbance. So if we are still talking about fire, let's stick with the fire. If the element of fire was the reason for you to neglect your feeling of, maybe you felt jealous, which is an emotion of fire. Maybe you refused to feel jealous, but you did really feel jealous, but you didn't want to say that to yourself. And so you neglected it, and therefore your mental fire hasn't processed it and hasn't metabolized it. Then there is a buildup of toxins of feelings that you have suppressed that then go through the nadis and then go through the organs. The corresponding organs for fire are the small intestine, as well as the liver, the spleen, and the pancreas. And so the ama in the physical body will probably be built up in one of these organs. And that's how it affects our health eventually. However, this was just the example of fire. Typically, the first choice of organ that your mental body communicates with is the pineal gland. Also the eyes, the pituitary gland, and the hypothalamus are firstly affected by disturbances in the mental body. And these glands are the ones that rule your overall hormonal balance. And so therefore, we now know that the mind is very much connected to the endocrine system and how it functions. Also because then the mind is connected to the nervous system. And we just learned that if the fire in the nervous system is disturbed, the quality of our shukra dhatu, the sex organs, is also disturbed. And therefore, the fire in the shukra is disturbed, which then affects your plasma, the first tissue in line, and the plasma's byproducts, which is the skin, your mucus, your vaginal discharge, and your menstrual cycle. So the menstrual cycle is a really beautiful way to check in with your hormonal balance, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So I'm going to share with you something very soon. But just to wrap everything up what I just said, we can learn from this that Ayurveda suggests you, in order to have hormonal balance, the first #1 base rule is acknowledgement of your essence as a spirit, which can be translated as self-love. Because if you have the self-love, you know that you are whole and you are where you're supposed to be, and therefore wouldn't be tempted to divide yourself over space and time because of some energetical imbalance. The second one is to live in the moment, which is also connected to self-love. Then the third one is self-inquiry, to check in with your emotions on a regular basis, and so that you can release them and help your mental fire so that it can stay stable. And then if those things are difficult, then you can heal the mental body by using the 5 senses, because we just learned that the mental body is sustained by sensory input and impulses. So by using the 5 senses properly and managing the sensory input, you will then be able to balance the mind and therewith your hormones and your sex organs. So I'm just gonna see if I can open, oh yeah, the chat is here. I'm gonna share a link with you that you can then open. It's this one. This is a link, and then the password to this link is 58 Wellbeing. By entering that link, you can then open a media kit, which will be of assistance when I go through the Dinakarya, the self-care items for your hormonal balance, because we're going to go through it per element, and it will be quite nice to actually see what we're going through. Maybe what I can also do is share my screen. Yeah, I think I'm sharing the screen now. So then if you have come to this page, you can download the media kit, which is here. Balance your hormones with with the gift of Ayurveda. So sensory input, the 5 elements, they all are connected to each their own sense. So earth is the first element, or actually I think I'm gonna start from the top down. I'm gonna start with space. Space is connected to the sense of hearing. And so if your emotions that, so if you do yourself inquiry and you find that the emotional balances that you have found is a cloudy mind, you feel disconnected, you feel spacey, unaware of your own patterns and feelings, then it might be a space elemental energetic imbalance. A healthy space hormones would look, healthy space emotions would look like clarity, you see possibilities, you feel unbiased, and you have a blissful state of mind. The tissues connected to space are the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus, the pineal gland. And these are all connected to the cerebrospinal fluid. So this is the first gland that your mental body will connect with. To heal these emotions, you can look at the sense of hearing. And the most important in this is hearing oneself. You can do so by keeping a dream journal or a free writing journal. Free writing is like you just go on your laptop and you just write whatever you want to write. You don't think about it. You don't make it perfect. You just really only write whatever you're thinking. And then after you've done that, you can then go into your tone of voice and see, oh, how am I actually talking to myself in my head? And based on the choice of words that you've made, you'll have an indication of your current state of masya, which is the nervous tissue. And you can then balance out by choosing pranayama, the Brahmi breath, or the herb, which is also the Brahmi herb, which is not the same as the breath, but comes from a plant, Jata Mamsi or valerian. And I'm actually going to stop sharing again because I'm going to show you the Brahmi breath. I did show in the last webinar that we've done. The Brahmi breath is where you close your eyes with the 4 fingers and your thumbs go over your ears. You breathe in for 4 seconds. You keep it there for 1 count. And as you breathe out, you make a humming bee sound. So you do, so it looks like this. Until it stops. So you can do that for 5 rounds, which is good for the space element and to heal your sense of hearing. The time of day that you should be doing this is between 2 in the morning, which is really early. So otherwise, just after you've woken up. If you know that the last day you had these emotions that connect you to, that are indicators of space element imbalance, then it can help to do this Brahmi bee sound. Try to share the screen again, but maybe I'll just leave it because yeah. Anyway, so and then the herb Brahmi is helpful, Yata Mamsi and valerian. The second tissue that the second element that can cause some imbalances is the vata dosha, the element of air. And the tissues that are related to this is the thyroid gland, the parathyroid gland, the thymus gland, and the function that's connected to this is circulation. So it's exactly the part that was activated in Lord Shiva. The feelings that you would have if the air element is imbalanced are feelings of having no control over the thought process, trouble speaking. It can be a very quick-paced speech, or you have difficulty finishing your sentences. You may stumble or you feel indecisive. There's a few aromas that you can also use to heal the air element, which is rose aroma, lotus for emotional healing, and there are sandalwood, copaiba, and copaiba to calm the nervous system. The herbs that you can use are shatavari and vidarakanda. These both are good for the shukra tissue, the sex organs. They will replenish the sex organs, and they're also good for the nervous system, both of these. So it's good for the air imbalance, which very often relates to a vata dosha imbalance. So the sense that is related to this, in a way, to heal the mental body, is the sense of touch. So those aromas that I just mentioned, rose or lotus, sandalwood or copaiba, you can add to your oil, all together with geranium or only just geranium, and you can oil massage away from the heart. The heart I choose here specifically because the functionality of this element is circulation. And now I would definitely, well, actually you can see it in your media kit if you've opened it already, that the air element is can very well be seen in the air. So as the sense of touch is healing it, you can then look at the marma points for the connected glands. And the marma points for connected glands are around here. So for everyone, this is a little bit different, but it is around here. The ear kind of reflects the embryo, and then the embryo's face would be here. The spine is all the way here. Then it goes in a bit with the knees. So the vital organs are all here. And the toes are with the legs are around here. This is the Kundalini marma point, which is very helpful for your overall nervous system. So this is one that you can always touch. There's also the same Kundalini on the big toe. This is sometimes why people in India are wearing a ring around their big toe. That's also a Kundalini point, which is good for the nervous system. And then specifically for the air element, there is the gland for the thymus around the ear. You can see it in your media kit. So you can touch those with the oil that you have and the aromas, which then heals the air element imbalance. Next one in line is the fire element that can have an imbalance. The sense connected, well, no, first the emotions connected to fire are a little bit separated because it depends on the organ. The fire element connects with the liver, the spleen, the stomach, the pancreas, and some other organs. But very specific emotions for liver imbalance are anger, feeling hate, frustrated, or envious, or jealousy. And for the spleen, it's attachment, greed, pride, and hopelessness. Other emotions that come with this pitta fire imbalance are self-criticism, judgment, feeling vindictive, and the tendency to overwork. The healing sense for this one is vision. So you can use visualized meditation, or you can use an image or a gemstone in a blue color, a white color, a brown color, or a violet color. I really like the use of gemstones because you can put your intention in this gemstone. So if your intention is to release, for example, spleen's attachment, then you can put that intention in the gemstone and you can meditate on it. So that can be very helpful to then put it in a blue gemstone symbolically. Then there's also a seed mantra. Seed is called bija in Vedic language, and it plants new seeds in your brain. So once you have acknowledged the emotions that you have, you can then plant a new seed. And the mantra for fire is Ram. So you can either inhale, and on your exhalation, you silently chant Ram, or you can make a seed mantra yourself that connects to this Ram. Ram is the fire of the solar plexus, and it transforms things. So you can then choose to transform your attachment into unconditional love, and you can create your own mantra based on that. Other than that, you can also choose for herbs in order to balance it out. And these are all listed in the media kits. One of the herbs for the fire is also shatavari. This is replenishing for the shukra dhatu, the sex organs. But also, for example, if you're due for delivery, it's good for the breast milk. And to improve your blood, because blood is often impurified by the elemental imbalances. So to improve this, lodra is a very strong blood detoxifier as well as its neem. And frankincense and myrrh, because frankincense adds 20% oxygen. Neem, for example, I used to have candida and always came back, and my skin was really chappy because of it, especially around the middle finger, which is the finger that connects with the fire element. And this candida just wouldn't leave me. Then my Ayurvedic doctor told me to take neem, and I took neem for 6 weeks, but already after the 3rd week was the first thing I took in the morning, because things to tonify your blood is good to have first thing in the morning, like 1 hour up to 2 hours before you have breakfast. That's another one. But again, preferably before 6, but otherwise you can still do it before 8. And yeah, my candida then was gone. Now during pregnancy, neem is not the best one to take, so now it's back again, which is quite regular for pregnancy anyways. And in the media kit, you can also see the picture of the tongue, because on the tongue, in the middle of the tongue, around here, is the acupressure points for the organs related, and also the endocrine glands related to the fire imbalance. So if you have some coating around that spot especially, then you know it's a fire imbalance, especially when there's red dots. So that's the fire. Then we go to a very interesting one, which is the water element imbalance. Emotions that you have when the water is specifically decreased is deep feelings, but less expression. So you feel deep, but you have difficulties expressing them, even for yourself. You don't have the need to express them even. If the water is increased, you have the same deep feelings, but you're also dramatic about them. So you do express them, but you kind of are very dramatic in this, very emotional. The organs that are affected by a water imbalance and these emotions are the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, the uterus, the vaginal canal, and the testes. Also, the first tissue in line after the shukla dhatu, which is the plasma, which we said before, and the menstrual cycle as its byproduct, are affected by especially these emotions. So if you want to heal this, especially if your PMS is related to depression or feeling blue or feeling very deep about things, then it's a good idea to heal this by the sense of taste. Because taste is connected to the shukla dhatu and to the water element. The tastes that you can use to get some more water, so if you have the decreased feelings, the less expressional ones, are sweet and sour. And the tastes that you can use when you feel like your water element is increased, you feel deep and dramatic, the tastes are salt, bitter, and astringent. The herbs are to increase it, so to express more: aloe vera, ashwagandha, and again shatavari. Although I have to say, shatavari for water, if you also feel like you are very congested in your lungs, for example, and if you also feel like you've been putting on weight or you're retaining water, then shatavari I would leave. But if that's not the case, then you can definitely use shatavari. In order, if you have the increased ones, then you can use manjista, sage, and cloves. The seed mantra for this dosha is Vam. And for meditation, I would suggest the So Nam meditation. So, and then connect that to your breath. So when you inhale, you do So, and when you exhale, you say Nam. This is in order to reconnect your mental body with the prana, with the consciousness, so that you feel lighter. Then the last element is the earth element, and the emotions that you would have with the earth element imbalanced. When the earth is decreased in you, you would feel fearful, ungrounded, empty, and embarrassed. In this case, you can do a lunar pranayama. You breathe in through your left nostril and you breathe out to your right in a few cycles. When the kapha, when the earth element is increased, you feel overly attached, lazy and lethargic. Then the right breath is the solar pranayama, breathing in through the right, breathing out to the left. Solar is the sun, so you want to activate when your earth is increased, because you will not be activated at all. You feel lazy and lethargic. You need the solar energy. If you feel decreased, you need the lunar energy. So when you feel fearful, ungrounded, and embarrassed, you do this meditation in the morning. When you have the other one, you feel overly attached, lazy, and lethargic. The solar pranayama doesn't really matter when you do it, but it's good to do it right before the activity cycle of the day picks up, which is at 10 a.m. So if you do it right before 10 a.m., you would have the solar energy to at least from 10 to 2 be active. The smell, the sense that is connected to the earth element is the sense of smell. Wants to increase your earth element. So when you've been fearful and ungrounded, empty and embarrassed, you can use the aromatherapy with lotus, lavender, and geranium. When you've been feeling overly attached, lazy, and lethargic, you want to use the smell of sandalwood, coffee, dandelion, aloe vera, and eucalyptus. The organs that I didn't mention yet that are connected to the earth imbalance are the ovaries, the testes, and the uterus. But in this case, the affected organ is not so much the plasma and the menses, but it is your lower back, the plexus around the lower back, going to the pelvis. So, having gone through all that, I think it's time for questions.
Thank you. Another fascinating talk and a lot of information. It's good that we have the media kits that we send into all attendees after. So that's all going to be available. And you shared it so we can log in. I do have one question. We are in lockdown. So a lot of our emotions are different to the normal. It's kind of like it's not normal way of living. How
Yes.
does that actually affect ayurvedically our whole being?
That really depends on what your preference is normally. For some people that are in the lockdown, they see it as an opportunity to actually do more. So if you would have a fire imbalance already before the lockdown, or your nature is fire, then you would be like, oh, this is amazing because I don't have to waste time over traveling somewhere, for example. And that makes you even more active. So it would increase the feelings that come with the fire imbalance. You would be more critical, you would feel more envy, all these things. Oh, also for the fire, actually, I forgot to say, one really good thing to heal the fire imbalance is also social media hygiene. So too, because vision is connected to the fire.
Yeah.
So if you really choose who you're following, what you want to see, how much time you spend on there, and then just like exhale, release it, put it away. So yeah, for the fire element, that's what happens. If you have a pre-existence of a kapha imbalance, or your nature is kapha, then the lockdown can be quite challenging because you're not motivated to go anywhere. You have to be at home, which is really nice if you're kapha, but then you also get more congested, sentimental, deeper emotions. You want to talk to your family all the time, which makes you feel super nostalgic. And it can be challenging because it may trick you into feeling really blue for a long time. So I think for kapha, it's most challenging. Then for vata, for people with air and space, yeah, I think it's difficult because they can't move. So for them, they like the energy that normally would go out and they would have ways to have it going out is challenged. So they will feel very, especially restless. So for them, but it's a really good way to build routine. So I think if you look at it from that way, if you're aware of this and you want to heal it, then it's an amazing opportunity to build routine and to maybe do new plans that are digital, that involve digitalizing, because then you can still release your creativity in some way. But also I've seen many people that suddenly started painting, or now are doing pottery, or now I do all these things. So I guess, yeah, that's how each dosha just expresses itself in a different way. But for kapha, it's definitely most challenging, the earth and the water.
Thank you. Any other questions from our audience? Okay, so thank you so much for a very good session. And we, as I said, will have the kit available. And potentially we will have Deborah back with us in May for continued sessions. And for this evening, that was the last session of today. We do have a question. Wait.
Phases of the moon and their effects on the hormones. Yes, there is in the media kit, there is one picture where it shows the phases of the moon, because it's quite tricky, no? Because if you look at science, then not everything is agreed on. So the planetary effects that Ayurveda looks into a lot is for most of the times not agreed on. However, the moon is the one planet that science can find proof for, because of the pooling of the water. So there is, when you enter your menstruation, it's the new moon very often. So the new moon phase will, if you're aligned with nature and the moon, the new moon phase will very likely be the one where you start to bleed. Then the waxing moon is the follicular phase for your hormones. And you will ovulate around full moon. And then when a moon is waning, it is typically the ovulation is when fire is peaking, and then right after you will have the vata entering, so the air and the space, and this comes with the waning moon, or the weeping cry, how Ayurveda calls it, because new life has not been created. So then you move on to again a new moon with the menstrual cycle.
Okay. So any other questions? We still here?
I actually, wait, maybe I want to share something right now in this chat, because I have a whole article about this specific question on my blog. So if you like, this might be interesting. Yes, this one. It's about the phases of the moon, but more also about the phases of your menstrual cycle and the herbs that you can use in different phases.
Thank you. So that's available in chat, but we will make it available for everybody as part of the media kit.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so it's a beautiful sunny day. We'll allow you guys to try and go to a window or a park and get some vitamin Ds, as those are very important for hormonal balancing as well. And thank you again, Deborah. We'll see you potentially very soon. We have our next session tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and that's with a sleep expert, when we actually going to get some more tips on how to manage and maintain very good night's sleep during this time. So thank you. That was an amazing session. Thanks so much.
So much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.